Hey guys, welcome to the show. Today in the show, I'm really excited. I have Lee Dumas here with us today, and John's here on the show. He's going to share his story, talk a little bit about Entrepreneur on Fire, and then we're actually going to dig really big into webinars, talk about webinars and how John's been using webinars. So welcome to the show, John.
John, I'm excited to be here. I love talking webinars. It's the thing in 2014, which is going to get me to seven figures. So let's chat.
Yeah, awesome. So do you want to start out, I guess, for anyone that just doesn't happen to know who you are, share your story about Entrepreneur on Fire and talk a little bit about how that all came to be?
I'd love to, yeah. Just a country boy from Maine, John. Grew up in a very small town for the first 18 years of my life, and went to college on a ROTC scholarship. So I spent 8 years in the Army after college. And then when I was done with the Army, I tried a bunch of things in the civilian world. I tried corporate finance, I tried law school, I tried commercial and residential real estate. Nothing was really clicking with me. Nothing was lighting my quote-unquote fire, so to speak. But fortunately, at 32 years old, I was stuck in traffic, listening to podcasts, which I loved to consume, but I never even thought of producing one until that day, stuck in traffic. I realized I just ran out of podcasts. I really want to find a podcast that comes out 7 days a week. I know one doesn't exist. Why can't I create that podcast? So that was the day, John, that Entrepreneur on Fire was born. I immediately went back, quit my job, put it all focused on building and creating a 7-day-a-week business podcast, which I ended up launching in September of 2012. Here we are, 485 episodes later,
Wow.
Still loving life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you've probably done more episodes in like this short span of time than anybody else out there, as far as I know.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So have you missed like a single day throughout, the scheduled time? Like, have you missed any? I know the way that I've heard you say, I think it's like Mondays you just crank through everything and then post it out throughout the week.
Never missed a day.
Wow.
Not even Christmas.
Well, obviously that's the beauty of being able to auto schedule things.
Yes.
That's
Huge.
awesome. Awesome. So do you want to talk about, I know this is something I really wanted to hear about is, like what are some of the struggles you've had just kind of starting out and, going through this whole journey you've had to, almost 500 episodes?
I've had so many struggles, John. I've faced a ton of fear. I've failed more times than I can count. I continue to make mistakes and fail every single day. When I first started, I had zero broadcasting experience. I had never interviewed somebody before. I had no idea about the technical side of podcasting. And I had zero online presence. I didn't even have a Twitter account or a Facebook fan page. I was literally starting from scratch. But the thing that I did was I went out there and I hired a mentor. And that mentor, John, was Jamie Tardy. She was a podcaster who had been very successful for a number of years at a podcast called The Eventual Millionaire. And she helped me face those early fears, that imposter syndrome that I was facing on a daily basis, that little voice in my ear that was saying, who's going to want to listen to you? Who's going to want to actually come on your show and be interviewed by you or have a conversation with you? You're nobody. You have no experience. You have no online presence. Why are you doing this? And, that voice I had to battle with all the time. But again, because I went out and I invested in myself and I hired a mentor, Jamie Tardy, she was able to be there for me. She was able to guide me through, that minefield of fear and of failure and of just heartache and of just lack of confidence. And before I knew it, I was meeting people in the industry. I was getting them to say yes to come on Entrepreneur on Fire. I was scheduling my first interviews. I was conducting my first interviews. I was getting out there and learning the skills that I needed. Adobe Audition, learning how to navigate iTunes, Liberated Syndication, which is a media host, learning all the skills that I needed as well, which again was bringing up new fear and new failures every single day, but then I was tackling them every single day and overcoming them, and that was giving me more confidence as I continued forward. So for those 3 months in the summer of 2012 building up to launch, it was 3 months filled of many successes, many failures, major fear, a lot of lack of confidence, but a growing of that confidence. So when I launched September 22nd, I had interviewed 40 people in the bank. I was ready to go on a daily schedule. I had learned a ton about podcasting. I'd made a lot of great connections. I had, built relationships with these 40 plus entrepreneurs that I'd interviewed, and I was ready to roll.
Awesome, awesome. So I mean, you really like prepared yourself. I know because you said you spent about 3 months before you actually put yourself out there and got your show really launched.
3 months. It was my summer of fire. Just focused, nose to the grindstone, learning everything I could, communicating, engaging with everybody that I could, building that foundation, that platform. So when I launched in September of 2012, right after my 3 months of fire, that summer of fire, I was ready to go.
Awesome. That's really great. I mean, it's just amazing, what you've been able to do. And I know a lot of people are, like really looking up to you now, especially, you've got this whole membership community with Podcasters Paradise going on. How many members are in that course now?
We have 450 members. We launched Podcasters Paradise, John. When was it? Back on October 31st of 2013. So as you and I are talking, just 2.5 months ago. We launched this community to teach people how to create, grow, and monetize their podcasts. So we have video tutorials, a couple of which you've been so generous to contribute to, and those are really highly respected tutorials within Podcasters Paradise. We have a community forum. We have monthly webinars with today's top podcasters. We've already had Pat Flynn, Amy Porterfield, and Michael Hyatt as our top podcasters come and give exclusive webinars to Podcasters Paradise. And we've grown from that October 31st launch date of 0 members to where we now sit at 450 members here in the middle of January. Wow. With a revenue just under $200,000 in just that 2.5 months. So it's been unbelievable.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know, obviously, for me, I was one of the early birds, so I probably was in like right off the bat, and I've seen like how much the site has grown and like all the content that's been added and everything that's been going on. It's a really awesome community for anyone who's listening that's been interested. It's definitely worth checking out.
Thank you.
But so I know, I guess to get focused on this show, I really wanted to talk about webinars and make this whole show about webinars. So I know I've got this outline here. I'm basically, like we said, I'm just going to go through, kind of talk about this. One of the things I thought was interesting, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to webinars, but I think it might kind of come into the whole idea of the sale is when you started out, you offered the course, you'd sent out an email to your list and you said, hey, I'm doing an early bird special, $200, and now you've increased the price. I think you put it up to $497, and then it's now, what is it, $997 or $1,000?
Yes. Yep.
So do you want to talk a little bit about that kind of piece of presenting this membership, like increasing the price over time now that you have more members and you've been able to give it a bigger kind of price point?
Absolutely. So John, Podcasters Paradise is all about creating, growing, and monetizing your podcast. And again, we have those 3 components that I touched upon, which are the 100+ video tutorials of every step of that process, the community forum, and the monthly webinars with today's top podcasters. Now, when this idea formed in my mind, I thought it was a great idea personally, but if you study Eric Ries of the Lean Startup Model and other successful entrepreneurs, when they go through their idea phase and then their launch phase, you just can't think that something yourself is a good idea. You really want to test the market. So that's exactly what we did with that early bird special. We reached out to those people that were on our email list, those people that listened to our podcast, and we said, listen, we're about to launch Podcasters Paradise. Now it's late September. We're probably going to launch in late October, so a couple months from now. But we really want to test the market and see if this is something that you, our raving audience, like our top listeners, our top followers, our top fans, is this something you really would want? So what we're going to show you is approximately what we're going to create, those 3 components. It hasn't been created yet, but this is what we're creating right now behind the scenes. And if you want to lock in an early bird special and prove to us that it will be worth our time to create this, that enough people will want this, then here's the early bird special. Here's where you can lock in your rate. So that first weekend at the end of September, John, we put it out there for $197 because we wanted to test the market to see if people would actually pull out their wallets and pay for something that they knew did not yet exist, that we were currently just starting to work on, and we're openly proclaiming that the doors will not open until the end of October. So a solid month plus from that point. And over that one weekend that we had it open for the early bird special, we did 35 sales at $200. So that showed us right away that over 35 people will literally pay for something that doesn't exist and won't exist for a month. There's definitely value there. So
Yeah.
we locked in those 35 people. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead. I was just
Yep.
agreeing with what
So
you're saying.
we locked in those 35 people, and we said, okay, we have something here. Now let's really get to work. So we put our nose to the grindstone. We started creating content. We started building out the forum. We started lining up those first few great guests, the Pat Flynn and the Amy Porterfield and the Michael Hyatt, for those first few big-time webinars that we were planning. And we raised the price immediately, too. We raised the price from $197 to $297 because the early bird special is over. Those people that locked in, they will be the only people that were ever able to lock in that early bird special. We're always thankful for that. So then we raised the price, and we started going to work. And then on the weekend that we launched Podcasters Paradise, the price point was that I think it was a $297 price point, or I think we had raised it to $397 at the time of launch when we actually came out with Podcasters Paradise at the end of October. And the sales just started pouring in, and we knew that that was the right price point at the time because we had definitely built out the video tutorials, we had definitely built out the forum, and we had the webinars lined up. So we were comfortable with that. And then, John, we continue to build, and that's something that we can talk about as we continue on.
Sure, sure. I know as well you've also offered, like, throughout time you've been, throwing out, okay, I've got a discount, and then you'll kind of give like discounts through like maybe a week or for a set period of time, and that was like good incentives for people to get in, and that looks like, I'm assuming that's probably worked well as well, for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had some fun with it. We had a Cyber Monday sale where we went out there and we said, hey, it's Cyber Monday, guys. If you want, take $200 off just for today. And we did like 20 sales just because of Cyber Monday and that little fun day that we had. And what we've moved up to now, which is incredibly successful, and I know it's going to be the main topic of this entire conversation that we're having, are webinars. So with Podcasters Paradise, our price point is $997 for a lifetime access to Podcasters Paradise. On a weekly basis now, John, we are conducting and we're holding free podcast workshops for anybody that wants to come and just learn about podcasting, or maybe learn some real cool information, tips, tools, and tactics about podcasting specifically. Maybe hear some statistics that I was shared when I went up to sit down with the head of iTunes podcasting just a couple months back, and the reason why iTunes is so excited about podcasting in general. We do these live free webinars every single week. People can go to podcastersparadise.com to claim their spot on that next webinar, and we have that on our website, John. And by what I mean that we have that, we have the announcement on our website that, hey, click here to claim your spot for the free podcast workshop. We talk about it in the outros of our podcast. We talk about it in our newsletters. So we're really talking about it in all different areas. We're saying, hey, if anybody has any interest in podcasting, or if you have a podcast right now and you want to learn how to grow and monetize it, this free webinar we're doing on a weekly basis. It's live. It's with me. We're having a blast doing it. You'll get a ton of value. And then we're, of course, going to offer you the opportunity to join Podcasters Paradise. And we do offer a pretty substantial discount to Podcasters Paradise on that live webinar, John, for people that are there, that are listening, that are engaging. And then we always end with something that's really fun. We do a live drawing for a free membership. So everybody that's bought during that live webinar gets entered into a live drawing at the end, and one person will win an immediate refund of their Podcasters Paradise lifetime membership.
Okay, so that was actually something I did want to cover as well today, but I was curious about that because I know that's like an incentive you're using is a free giveaway, but that's for people who they buy it, and then one of those people who buy that day, they'll get a refund.
Yeah, and we do that live drawing right at the end of the webinar. Everybody who's bought sees their name in the list. We hit the live drawing button. One name gets spit out, and that person wins that free lifetime membership.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool, and that's definitely something I haven't seen. Out of all the webinars I've attended over the last couple of years, I don't really see a lot of that kind of giveaway incentive going on.
Yeah, and that's like $1,000 giveaway, so it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess let's see, what else do I have here? We've talked about a lot. Definitely a few things I already wanted to cover. I know I wanted to talk about the discounts, so we've mentioned that. Let's see. So, what are your thoughts, I guess, in general on webinars, like in terms of being able to sell products, sell memberships, and obviously in your case, you're able to sell Podcasters Paradise. What kind of got you onto the idea of using webinars as a way to present these products and present Podcasters Paradise?
So my mentor is Lewis House, and he is known as the king of webinars. He's been very successful for years and years and years conducting, hosting, and having and holding live webinars. He's just seen the power of that live giving away of free value, the engagement right there, making that buying decision right then. Somebody else who's actually coached me quite a bit in the past and who's currently coaching me as well right now is Ryan Lee. Ryan Lee is somebody that I look up to an incredible amount, and I love everything that he puts out. And I join his webinars just to see how his webinars are going and to learn from them, because I love how he does his live webinars, and he's a huge believer. So through the mentorship and the coaching of both Lewis House and Ryan Lee, my eyes were wide open to the power of webinars and of specifically live webinars where you're really engaging with people and you're answering their questions live right there on that webinar, and you're actually saying their name and welcoming them and talking to them like they're really there, which they are, and then offering great value during that webinar, which we do at the podcast workshops, and then of course offering Podcasters Paradise at an incredible value, often 30+% off the actual value of it for people that are going to make that buying decision on the call. So we have a lot of fun in these webinars. Kate and I have it down to a science. We're doing one every single week. We're driving traffic both organically, and we've experimented with Facebook ads, both of which we've had success with. Obviously, driving people organically is the best way to do it, because those are your real fans. Those are people that have found about the webinar from your site or from your podcast or from an email, and they're there because they want to be there and they already know you on some level. And we're seeing a large proportion of our sales are coming from that organic list. But then we're also spreading the word via Facebook ads, as we can be very targeted, and we're having a lot of success with that as well. So we're definitely having fun with both levels, both the organic and then the Facebook driving traffic to sign up for that webinar. And I'm looking for 2014 to potentially be holding at least 50 of these webinars. Again, I like to do one a week, and I can see myself cranking it up to possibly 2 a week if they keep working at the success level that they currently are.
Yeah, I know kind of in the outline I've created today, I did want to talk a little bit about Facebook and like how you've been able to monetize that for presenting these webinars. I guess before we dive into that though, in terms of webinars, I know we talked about your the kind of struggles you've had when it came to starting out your interview show and the podcasting, but did you have any real struggles when setting up these webinars for the first time, and did you find that you were improving with certain things, like obviously when you first started running these webinars for Podcasters Paradise, like were you really struggling with them?
So thankfully for me, my partner in crime, Kate, was right by my side, and having two people running webinars makes things so much easier. So there's always the two of us tag teaming these webinars, as far as me just focusing on engaging with the chat room right before the webinar starts, and then diving into the actual webinar presentation, whatever that may be, and really being able to focus on that. Where Kate's able to then be in the chat room, keeping the chat questions answered, sending me questions via Skype that might come up during the webinar, letting me know who the buyers are so that I can enter them into the drawings and things along those lines, and just keeping everything throughout very smooth. So that's a huge help, is having another person that's really there supporting that webinar. And I couldn't do it nearly as smoothly on my own. And this is how we do webinars, John, right here. We do Google Hangouts.
Yep.
We have Google Hangouts as our actual webinar. So right here, this is just me, just like this, talking on a Google Hangout. And then what we do is we actually take the embed code from this Google Hangout and we paste it into a lead pages page that's set up for this, and so people can then be watching on that lead pages page, which the website's just podcastwebinar.com. They can just go to podcastwebinar.com. Here's the live streaming webinar that I'm conducting right now. I can share my screen and show people my screen, et cetera, and just absolutely go forward with that. And then we have a chat box below the actual video that's going on of me presenting, so people can engage with each other, and Kate can be in that chat room chatting back and forth.
Yeah.
And there's actually a buy button right on that webpage, so people can just click Buy Podcasters Paradise. It's going to take them to the order form, and it's a very smooth process. So we definitely love the Google Hangouts, YouTube Live, into a lead page, which we again use at podcastwebinar.com, because it gives you that ability to have that video, to have that chat room, to have that buy now button right there, all on one website. That we can just now take podcastwebinar.com and just forward that link out to people. Hey, this is where the webinar is going to be.
Right.
And all I need to do is just click that link. There's no loading of a go-to webinar or a go-to hangout. There's none of that. It's just a link. They go to it, the webpage, it's there, it's live, it's happening.
Awesome. Yeah, I know I do want to ask you a little bit more on that, but I guess before we kind of dive into like the actual presentation, I wanted to talk a little bit more about like the actual content that you're presenting in these webinars. Like what are some of the things that you're really sharing during the webinar? I know in a lot of the webinars that I've watched, and I hear this a lot. I think I thought I maybe heard Derek Halpern say it, but I could be wrong. In a lot of cases, what I see is that people will share about 90% value, and then at the end they'll present a product or a training program. I know in your case it might be a little different because obviously people are already aware that you've got this membership site and that's what you're going to be talking about.
Absolutely. So I'm always kind of tweaking and changing my webinar to try to improve it, and we do definitely stack a lot of value at the beginning. We share why podcasting has been powerful for so many people, why it's exploding right now. We share some great statistics. We share how it can help your business. We share with you how you can find your topic, your avatar, your niche. We share with you some real great value about the world of podcasting, how you can grow your audience, how you can monetize. I go really specific on the sponsorship route because I've really perfected that area of monetizing your podcast. So I do a deep dive in there as well. And then, a big part of our webinar, which takes place right around the middle, John, we actually do a behind-the-scenes lifetime look inside Podcasters Paradise. So I'm able to share my screen and go in and show people everything that Podcasters Paradise has, all the video tutorials, the Create tab, the Grow tab, the Monetize tab, that all have tons of video tutorials, and I'm able to show them that in real time. Then I can take them into the forum and show them the incredible forum and all the interaction that's going on there. Then I can take them into our email templates and our documents tab, so they can really see all the different email templates and different waivers and document samples that we have there as well that every podcaster should know. I can show them the frequently asked questions page, all the questions they don't even know they have yet. They can just use that page as almost like a book, as a resource to learn so much from other questions other Podcast Paradise members have asked. And then I take them into the webinars page where they can see that we do monthly Q&A sessions with me, and they're recorded right there. We've had Pat Flynn, Amy Porterfield, and Michael Hyatt, and the recorded webinars are right there for them to watch at their leisure. So we're having a lot of fun with all of those things, and really taking people inside to Podcasters Paradise. And then we come back out of Podcasters Paradise. I end the webinar with a nice home stretch of pure value, and then we end with the final pitch with, hey, this is Podcasters Paradise. If you're buying today, this is the amount you're going to get off, whether that be $300 or $200, whatever that may be. People that buy today are going to get Podcasters Paradise for this discount. You're also going to be entered into a drawing. If there's any questions, I'll answer them again. So I actually answer questions at the middle, right after Podcasters Paradise sneak peek, and then again at the end. So there's 2 different question and answer sessions. Yep. And then, of course, we have the live drawing, and we end with a bang.
Awesome. So, I mean, in your case, you're not really, I know with a lot of these webinars, people are doing that, they're doing slides like PowerPoint style. In this case, you're really talking about the program and then letting people kind of dive in and see it real time.
Yeah, I mean, we have 80 plus keynote slides that we definitely walk through when we're sharing
Okay.
the podcasting statistics, and then we share different ways to find your avatar. So we do have a whole presentation intertwined, but then in the middle, we actually do a deep dive into Podcaster's Paradise. So it's not just me, a talking head like this, talking about podcasting. It's really an actual keynote slide presentation that I walk people through so they can really kind of see that visually as I'm walking through, like, yes, 575 million, active subscribers on iTunes, XYZ, and going through.
Now, something else I wanted to ask, and you may or may not be doing a lot of this during the actual presentation, but I know people in general, a big sales tactic is basically telling stories and talking about, using stories as a way to kind of build that trust and get people really interested in what it is that you're talking about. I mean, is that a tactic that you're using to kind of keep people engaged or maybe get excited about the actual webinars?
Yeah, I tell stories throughout. We actually start the entire webinar with a series of small stories, where I want people to imagine, what it would feel like to be in iTunes New and Noteworthy. And then I tell them my story. And then, imagine receiving an email from a life you changed. And then I tell them my story. So I think stories are really important. I interweave them throughout my webinars, and I think they're a really powerful tool to use for anybody that has any product or service that they're talking about on a live webinar.
Yeah, that's great information. That's really key. I know that that's a big selling thing, and people can really just I guess relate to you when they're hearing something like that,
Yeah.
or feel like what it comes down to. So I know some of the other things I had here. We already talked about the free copy you give away towards the end. Let's see, what else did I have here? So you already talked about where you drive the people. You basically, I'm assuming you've created podcastwebinar.com.
Yes. Yep, that's the site.
Is that a forwarded domain just sitting off Entrepreneur on Fire? Is that all that is?
Yeah, that's just a forwarded domain that will forward them to an Entrepreneur on Fire page.
Cool. Let's see, what else did I have here? So I know I already knew this, but and I think we've kind of covered it a little bit. But you're using lead pages, which I know is, I think the basic is like $37 a month, and they give you
something like that.
Tons of awesome templates. I have a membership to it, so I've seen those templates, and I'll share with people an example of the landing page that you're using when people go and opt in to check out the actual webinar. But I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on some of these other systems like GoToMeeting? It sounded like that's sort of something of the past now that you're able to use Hangouts, and that's obviously, I've heard GoToMeeting is very expensive.
GoToMeeting is very expensive. You're limited with the numbers. I think if you want to have anything over 100, I don't actually even know the price. I just know it's really expensive to have GoToMeeting, and there's also some barriers. Like, people actually need to download a little bit of software as they're opening up their GoToWebinar, and some people's computers can't handle it. And hey, there's negatives to Google Hangouts too. But I love Google Hangouts. It's free. It's unlimited. It allows you, to be really flexible, to send people a link that they can just click on. So right, when our webinar starts, I'm just blasting out the social media. Hey, go to podcastwebinar.com. Just click on this link and you can just join live. And we have people that just join last minute because they're able to. They don't have to actually go through that whole sign-up process. So there's a lot of flexibility to it. It's free. It's unlimited. It has its foibles, as everything does, but it's pretty powerful.
Awesome. So something else I kind of wanted to touch upon, and just on this subject of landing pages, I mean, obviously, I know when it comes to the actual sales page, it's important to have good copywriting or good copy on that page. Bullet points, and things that are going to entice people, to get signed up. And I know you're also using a short introduction video. It looks like you recorded that. If I remember, I think you're using Wistia, which is like high quality video.
Vimeo.
Oh, it's Vimeo. Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't look, but I thought maybe it might have been Wistia. Either way, Vimeo is good too. But do you want to talk a little bit about some of the copy and things? Is that something you outsource? How did you kind of come about creating the page that entices people to go and sign up?
Yeah, and again, that's something we're always tweaking. That was just Kate and I working together, really getting feedback from people like Lewis and Ryan Lee, and really continuing to work the actual copy of the page to really try to help that information out that made people want to subscribe to the podcast workshop that we do weekly. Our main goal with podcastersparadise.com and with all of the copy that we use is to really get people that want to sign up for the actual podcast to come in and learn about podcasting. And that's where we'll either sell them on Podcasters Paradise or just have them leave, not having joined Paradise, but having really gained a lot of great value throughout that webinar. So our goal is to get people there because we're seeing that's where the real sales are happening. That's where people at a price point of $997, that's an investment, and people aren't just going to be really willing to click that buy now button without something a little more like a live webinar, which is why I love what we created and why I love webinars for 2014.
Awesome. I know that like on at least last I looked at the actual webinar page, like you have something right in there, right in the video, I think, that says, you're doing that free 1 copy giveaway for people who decide to participate in the webinar.
Yeah.
And that's like obviously a huge, like, people are going to see that and go, oh man, if I join, I might have a chance of winning that,
And every week someone wins.
Yeah, awesome. So some other things I wanted to talk about, like kind of in the launch phase of the webinar, and I think you might have mentioned some of these questions, answered some of these questions already, but in terms of like the actual promotion phase, when it comes to like timing, how many days, like, let's say you mail out your mailing list, like how much time are you giving them before you actually do this webinar? Like right now it sounds like you're doing it once a week. So, I mean, do you email them like a week ahead of time, 3 days ahead of time? How much time?
With our actual emailing, I only like to do it a day or two in advance. That's, what I'm really finding, that people are like, okay, I know what I'm doing in tomorrow or the next day. But you give a week out, people might sign up, but then, things come up with more priorities, and that might kind of get forgotten. So I really like to just do it a day or two before.
Great. Now, I think you might have answered this, but you said you're doing them every week. So, I mean, has that been pretty consistent? Like every single week you're just doing the free webinar, or have you spread it out more, like maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later?
Every week. We love it, and we might actually go up to 2 days a week.
Wow. Now, another topic, and I know some people do this, is I've found that with webinars, obviously not everyone's going to be synced up in the same time. Like if you did it at 6 your time, obviously for me I could do it, but someone else in another time zone, they might not be able to do it. Are you just doing one webinar a week, or do you do a replay that same day and then maybe do it at like 6 o'clock and then again at 9 o'clock?
We started off doing replays and offering those replays to go out, but we just saw that those replays were not converting. They weren't really getting a lot of people watching them. And so we decided, you know what, we're going to start being hard asses. We're just going to let it be known that this is a live webinar. There are no replays whatsoever, period. So we're really upfront with that right at the beginning because we want as many people as possible to come live and not have that crutch knowing that they could potentially watch that replay later, when the reality is they probably never will. So, we don't offer replays. We don't schedule them. It's a live webinar only. At some point down the road, we might like open up another time frame where that second one that week will be a recording, just so Kate and I aren't having to do 2 webinars every single week. But I do believe that you need to have a time that people are going to, and then they're not just going to think that they're going to get that replay emailed to them.
Yeah.
And people now that email me and say, John, I just couldn't make it to the webinar, I'm sorry. I'm like, well, you can schedule yourself for the next one. It's coming up in a week or less. I'd love to see you there.
Yeah, makes sense. And I know, I think I've heard Danny Inney of Firepole Marketing talk a little bit about kind of the replays. It's kind of the same opinion. Like he didn't really feel like it gives that same value. If you can't show up, then sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ramit Sethi's the same way.
Yeah.
You gotta show up live. There are people, if it's worth it, you'll make the time. If it's not, you're probably not going to buy anyways.
Makes sense. Yeah. This is kind of a whole other topic in itself, I feel like, a little bit, but obviously you've got Kate helping you out with the kind of preparation and organization and keeping the chat under control, things like that. But in terms of like the actual presentation, have you ever considered doing anything like as a joint venture with someone else to maybe present this actual course.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I'm always open to having people reach out to me and saying, "Hey, I think my audience will love this. Can we do a special webinar?" We've done that 3 or 4 times thus far already, where people have approached me and said that they thought that their audience would get a lot of value. They sign up as a 50% affiliate of Podcasters Paradise, and then we do the webinars together, and we have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I know. I've seen. I'm friends with Jeff Brown of the Read to Lead podcast.
Yeah.
I know he's got his I'm assuming you guys must have teamed up, and he's got his podcast course inside of Paradise, I believe, or he's got some sort of free giveaway for that.
Yeah, we just did a live webinar with Jeff Brown's followers, and as part of the incentive, Jeff gave away his academy to anybody that bought on that webinar. So there's a bunch of people that bought that webinar that bought lifetime membership to Podcasters Paradise and got Jeff's academy for completely free.
Awesome.
So we had a lot of fun with that, and that was exciting.
Yeah, I've actually got an interview with him next week. So
yeah, great guy.
Yeah, so and he did my he actually helped me out for free. Did my voiceover for my new intro that I'm now incorporating.
There you go. That's another thing that he did. He actually gave away an intro to people someone that bought in the webinar as well to kind of add some fun.
Yeah. So if you guys are wondering, I don't think I've mentioned it in any of my shows yet, but if you're the intro that's at the very beginning of the show, if you're listening on the podcast, that's actually Jeff's voice.
Nice.
All right, let's see. What else did I have here? In terms of doing the webinar, have you found that there's any particular disadvantages or advantages to doing it alone versus maybe doing it with someone else, like teaming up with Jeff?
Well, the disadvantage is that you're giving 50% of the profits away to who you're. So I mean, that's a disadvantage of some sort. But the advantage is that that's an audience that I may not have reached without Jeff or without somebody else that I teamed up with. So there's definitely pros and cons. I love working with people. I love the different joint ventures that I do. So I'm always willing, if somebody thinks they can bring together 50, 60 people to a webinar, I'm always willing to jump on that webinar and give some great value to their audience, team up, and then make us both some money.
Yeah, awesome. That's really awesome. Let's see. So I know we talked a little bit about Facebook, but I really wanted to kind of dive into actual promotion. And as far as I knew, I've seen your newsfeed ad that you've had coming up. I've gone through some Facebook training, I guess myself. I looked at some of Amy Porterfield's stuff. And Facebook ads can be super powerful. Now they've got newsfeed ads, which is still pretty relatively new as of I think it's less than 6 months, I want to say.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about. I know you share in your latest income report, you talked about kind of your daily ad spend, but maybe kind of lightly talk a little bit about Facebook ads and maybe get a little bit of an idea of how you're setting those ads up and how that's helped you kind of get an audience into these webinars.
Absolutely. So we used actually Amy Porterfield's course, Facebook Profit Marketing Labs, and we went through it and we learned how to create news feed ads for Podcasters Paradise, where I basically just post an actual post that will just say, hey, join our free podcast workshop. It'll be a quick video of me just basically saying, hey, join our workshop. We're having a lot of fun here, XYZ. And a lot of people. Well, and then we're using the Facebook ad machine to pump some money into that and to get in front of different audiences. And so, I'm finding podcasting groups on Facebook. I'm finding Pat Flynn, Amy Porterfield, Michael Hyatt's Facebook fans, and I'm targeting that audience utilizing that news feed, so it's showing up in the news feed of all of those people that I just mentioned, the podcasting groups, the different followers of the top entrepreneurs who I look at as my ideal customers, and driving them to a free podcast workshop, which turns into the Podcasters Paradise Share. And we've really been having a lot of success doing that. It's not cheap. You definitely do need to have some money to make it work. It's costing anywhere between $4 to $8 per actual sign up for the actual webinar. Of those people that are signing up, you can typically expect a 25-ish% actual show up rate to the actual webinar, and then we're converting about 35% of those people. So the numbers work.
Yeah.
If we spend like $1,600 in 1 week with Facebook ads, and we get 2 people from those ads to sign up, we're already at even. And typically we're getting 6, 7, 8 people to sign up from that. So the dollars and cents work. So it definitely has been a lot of fun for that reason, and we're definitely enjoying ourselves.
Awesome. So those are great numbers. I mean, I'll reference your income report because I know you kind of laid out some of that stuff in that when I read that recently. But I did want to ask, like a few basic things about Facebook ads. I don't want to dive like too deep into it, but maybe just some basics about your ad. What on average, like, what are you doing for a daily spend? I know you said $1,600 a week.
We were doing for about 2 weeks $200 a day. That was our Facebook spend. So, we are spending a lot of money, but we have a high ticket item, so it only takes a couple people to make up for that high daily spend. It definitely was something that I grew, from like $50 a day. It worked. We bumped up to 100. The numbers keep working. We bumped up to 200 for 2 weeks and drove a ton of people to the webinar, and had a couple webinars where we were doing $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 in sales. A portion of that coming from the Facebook, the people who had signed up through our Facebook ads. And then immediately after each webinar, I actually send out an email, a personal email, to each person who purchased, and ask them a series of questions through SurveyMonkey. One of those questions being, how did you hear about the podcast workshop? And obviously Facebook is one of those, so we are tracking that. But we also are able to tag those people as well to really see and make sure, and really see after the purchase where, what link they clicked through to sign up. And we can tell the people that signed up via Facebook, the people that signed up via our website, people that signed up because they heard it on the podcast. So it's all about tracking. That's very important. If you're going to go and have this kind of daily spend, make sure you know how to track the conversions.
Right, makes sense. Now, in terms of the ad itself, are you strictly just targeting the Facebook news feed, or are you doing the sidebar ads as well?
Strictly the news feed.
Okay, good to know. In terms of targeting, I think you talked about this. You're just doing groups and fan pages. You're not doing, like, I know with, this is advanced talk, but Facebook has a power editor which you can use with Chrome, and I know if you want to get super niche down, you can target what Facebook calls the UIDs, or the user IDs. You're not doing anything like super targeted with that, just general fan pages, or?
We're doing something, not the UIDs, but this is pretty advanced Facebook stuff. It's called custom audiences. So we are doing what's called custom audiences, where we can take like Pat Flynn's and whatever, however many, couple 10,000 people that he has, and then do a custom audience off of that, and Facebook will create an audience of 500,000 people, of people that are very similar to Pat Flynn's fans, that have all the similar tendencies and all the similarities, and then all of a sudden now we have a list of 500,000 people to work from, instead of just a list from 20,000, which really isn't big enough to just really to target for a Facebook ad. Right. You want to have at least 250 to 500,000 people you're targeting if you're going to be doing a campaign for a week or more. So custom audiences is kind of again, this is advanced, but any course you can take on Facebook advertising, you'll learn a lot about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've dug into it myself, but it's kind of, for me, it's been a little bit like nervous. Okay, do I want to drop this much money? Is it going to work? And there's so many different variables to go into it. I think I could guess, but my next question was, are you doing actual cost per click or cost per impression?
We are doing cost per click. We've actually gone and tested the optimized CPM as well, and there was a lot of success there, but not as much. Really, the cost per click, I think we were finding our best click-through rates and our best actual dollars per lead.
Okay, yeah, good to know. I would have guessed impressions, but it sounds like you guys have tested it a little bit, and obviously
we did.
Spending
and Amy Porterfield and a couple other people that I talked to are all about CPC. Even with the fact that they were all about CPC, we still did try cost per impressions, and It was successful, but not. It didn't seem to be as successful.
Cool. Last question was, are you doing any mobile targeting, cell phone devices?
We do. Yep.
You do.
We target the mobile with the ads. With Facebook, you can get very specific. And I actually, from the testing, was seeing that, we were not seeing as high a conversion to the actual signups through the mobile as we were through desktop. So if we were to do it again, our next round would probably be to disinclude the mobile, just because mobile can be powerful for certain things that you're doing, for absolute, but then when it comes to actually having to sign up for a webinar, type in your email address, it seems that people are less likely to do that on their phone than on their desktop. But this is just all kind of early testing. Nothing of this is absolute, but we're continuing to test.
Cool. Now, I guess in terms of promotion, that kind of covered the basic of really what I wanted to dig into for Facebook. I know for anyone listening, Amy Porterfield has really great stuff on that, and there's obviously lots of Facebook courses out there. So if you're more interested in learning about some of this stuff, I would check her stuff out. But I did want to ask, you've done the email list. I think if I remember correctly, you've got about 8,000 people on your email list.
Yep, about 9,000.
9,000. So I mean, is that you're doing the Survey Monkey piece? Where are some of the places that you're finding most of your audience is coming from? And are you doing anything with organic? I know you mentioned that a little bit towards the beginning of the episode.
A lot's coming from organic. A lot's coming from our website, from our podcast. So that's where we're seeing really the success originating from, which is why it all comes back to growing an audience. And podcasting's a great way to build an audience. It's the way that I built my audience to where I'm now generating, over $100,000 every single month through my different income streams. Yeah. So having your own audience is so critical. Being forced to rely on Facebook ads is not a great way to go. We're using that to supplement, but the fact that we can really count on our core is really important.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, I think we kind of covered some of these things, but there were a few more questions I wanted to dig into, and kind of moving more into the actual webinar itself. In terms of I've heard this kind of as a tactic when starting out the webinar. You might shout out a few people in the audience and just mention their name live. Are there some tactics or things you might want to mention, to kind of get people excited, get people riled up, and really ready to go and to learn about what it is that you're presenting?
Yeah, come to my webinars and check it out. I'm always asking people, where are you from? Let me know where you're from, and then people are shouting out different parts of the world, and you can always make a comment about Atlanta being Hotlanta or San Francisco. How about them 49ers? And just try to engage on the little things with them right at the top, and talk about different, try to connect with them on one level. Like if you've been to where they're from, mention something about it. Really connect with them on that level. So I'm in there 15 minutes early, chatting it up with any of the early arrivals. I really try to make each one of them feel welcome for obvious reasons, and we have a lot of fun.
Now, I don't know, I think we might have mentioned this, but I couldn't quite remember. Is there a point, I would assume towards the end, when you start allowing people in the chat to answer questions? Obviously Kate's handling the questions, and then she shoots them over on Skype, and then you'll just fire off answers? Is that usually how it goes?
Exactly how it goes. They'll be asking questions in the chat. Kate will keep a running list on Skype, and then when I ask for them, she'll just send them on over, and then I'll just kind of go through and answer all those questions.
Cool. Yeah, I think we kind of already talked about how you present your price points and how you do that throughout. We talked about another thing I know was showing the inside of the course and actually giving them a taste of what they're going to be getting if they purchase. I think that pretty much mostly covers what I wanted to get into. There's some resources I'll share with people. I know things we've mentioned, like Hangouts. You're using Vimeo. And you're using lead pages, obviously, is a big thing, and I'll share a link to obviously the page that you've got over at it's podcastwebinar.com.
Yeah, yep. But podcastersparadise.com is the place where people can go to sign up for an actual webinar. But if they just want to see the bare bones of what we've created, podcast webinars where the podcasts take place on a weekly basis.
Cool. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that I wanted to cover. I know you talked about stories. I guess, I don't know if this is something I really covered. It probably should have been something I asked earlier, but in terms of, I guess, selling on these webinars, do you feel that this is something, say me in particular, like say I'm just a terrible person at selling in general, like it's really difficult for me to sell people on things. I mean, do you think this is an avenue like anyone could really go down and learn how to use webinars to sell products or services?
Hey, if you want to be in the online game, if you want to be an entrepreneur that's creating products and services that you're selling, you got to get over your fear of selling. You got to get over your fear of just asking for the sale. And webinars is a great way to do it because they're a great place to make the sale, deliver a ton of value up front so people know that even if they don't decide to buy, they got a lot out of that webinar, and that's a really powerful thing. And then end with the sale. Say, hey, do you want to join Paradise? Here's the link to join Paradise. Here's the discount. I've already shown you all the benefits. Make it happen. Yeah. You'll start making sales that way. You'll see it's not that scary, and then you continue to improve your craft on a daily basis.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. I know I sent you this crazy, like, I don't even know, this outline. You know, normally I don't do this for my interviews, but I wrote like 1,000-word outline for the show for anyone listening, and I just went through this thing. I know I tried to stay as like A to Z as much as I could because I'm going to be writing about the webinars and all of the conversation we've had, write an article for this.
Yeah.
So anyone listening, you know, keep an eye out for that as well. But I think I've covered everything. You know, I really appreciate you coming on. And John, I also wanted to really thank you as well for giving me the opportunity to do a guest post on Entrepreneur on Fire a couple months back.
Yeah, you rocked it.
Yeah, that I put some work into that one. And I also wanted to thank you for allowing me to do tutorials. I'm going to be working on a couple more for you this weekend.
Excited, man. We're excited for that.
But yeah, for anyone who wants to check out John's show, it's over on, you know, what do you just do? eofire.com is that?
Boom. That's where cool. All the magic happens, John.
And podcast webinar if you're interested in checking out these webinars. But yeah, it's in I don't know if you know. Like we said at the beginning, I'm an early bird member. I've been in since the beginning. I was waiting a month till it was ready to go, and it's grown massively. People are super helpful in the community. I've gotten like probably 90% of my interviews, like the people rating my show, and more guests from people in the community. You know.
Love it. That's what the forum's all about, baby.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know I want to respect your time. We've been here almost an hour, so thanks for coming on, John.
My pleasure, John. Thanks again, bud.
Yep.